Must be nice. Be a little dog just sit there soaking up the sun with his old bones. I know, little man. I know. I like to sit in the sun sometimes too and let it heat these old bones. Good morning. Y'all been waiting and asking for this for ever since I made the last one a couple years ago. Composting toilets. How? Hold on. I'm trying to get away from the generator. How I do it, what I use, what stinks, what doesn't stink, how often you empty, all this stuff. So today, this is what we're going to cover: composting toilets off grid. And let me just show you what I use right here. Doesn't cost $1,000. I don't know if I can turn you around like that. Right there. Other people use 5-gallon buckets. I use cat litter buckets. I got 7 of them for free when I first come out here. And when I dump them, I have a compost pile. Just regular compost. Nothing special about it. It's compost. Same thing you throw your leftover garden stuff in, your scraps, regular compost. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get into the meat of the subject. Sorry, I had to do this. Okay, let's get into the subject matter. Now this is what your buckets look like after they've been washed out. As you can see, they're ready for their intended use. I put about 2 inches of, like I say, mulch or material, whatever you're using for your media. I put about 2 inches on the bottom before I start, and then from there it doesn't take much, just barely enough to cover your poo, and you're good for the next. In the 4.5 years I've lived here, and I hope you can hear this. If you can't, I'll voice over. But in 4.5 years I've lived here and used composting toilets, I've used several medias. One that I'm using now and I prefer, or second choice, is wood chips. And really, that's about all you need. For each use. The second thing, somebody gave me some potting mix, and that worked okay. There was no smell to that, really. I'd read that people like to use peat moss, so I bought some bags of that. Peat moss is my least favorite. It stunk using this peat moss. Now, I had some guy from UK tell me that he used peat moss in his composting toilet in his long boat. I think it's long boat. And it worked great. It didn't stink. Maybe because he went out and got the real stuff. Not that this ain't real, but I believe this is sterilized. If I'm not mistaken, they heat treat this. I'm not sure, but I'm telling you, it stunk. I stopped using it after a couple times. It was, This, like I said, this potting mix wasn't bad. It's just heavy and bulky. I wouldn't have bought it to use it for that unless somebody gave it to me. The wood chips, second best thing I've ever used. The best I like is the leaf mulch. Okay, let's look at this. Oh yeah. See this little layer under here? Not this stuff on top, which the stuff on top makes good your initial layer. I put about 2 inches of material on the bottom. Well, that's not real good either. That's dirt. Y'all know what I'm talking about. It smells like the forest floor when you rake it back. And when you open a bucket of compost, that is what it will smell like. Pull the top off, smells like old, musty, old forest floor. Like I said, it's kind of like a sourdough starter for your compost. It already has everything you need in there working already. The wood chips, I think, they take a little time. Some of those lids are getting old and cracked and let water in. You are going to want a tight fitting lid on whatever you use. If all you can get is 5-gallon buckets, make sure you get the lids to them. You don't really want no water to get into them. If water can get into them or you leave them open, stuff, bugs will get into them and stuff like that, and you don't want that. Ain't nobody got time for that. I didn't show y'all, but after I pour everything out in the on the compost pile, I cover it up with whatever I have, straw, leaves. I might use that rest of that bag of peat moss on it. Get rid of that because, man, I'll tell you what, I have no use for that stuff right now. So, but I do cover it up with something. And when you go get some of your buckets out, you'll see that they've already composted down a lot. And you're going like, I thought that bucket was full when you go, it was, but it has composted down, especially with those aspen chips. When everything gets going good in those aspen chips, they're just like anything else. They compress down. I empty my buckets whenever they're all full, really. Those buckets you see me empty, they're anywhere from 9 months to probably a month. Those ones that have been there the longest pretty much are already composted. You see me wearing safety glasses. You don't want none of that chlorine water in your eyes, or if you got a wet bucket, you don't want that stuff slopping on you. So, I mean, a composting toilet is one of the easiest things you can do on your homestead. Now, some people say, well, you just go dig a hole in the ground and put an outhouse over it. Well, that's all well and fine if you got the ground you can dig a hole in. This ground out here, you ain't digging no hole deep enough for an outhouse here. In the bottom, whatever I'm using for my media, 2 inches. And then when you do your business, cover it up. Just whatever it takes to cover it. That's the least I like were the aspen chips, or not the least I like. The problem with those were the chips are larger, and so it's fluffy. It fills your bucket up. If you don't mind that, they're easy to get. They last a long time. Buy them by the whole bag full at your farm supply. Typically, what I would do with my favorite media, which is the leaf mulch, is just go out there and get some. Like I said, it's been especially dry. But even the dry leaf mulch, not the whole leaves on top unless you've mulched those, I have used the new leaves for the first layer. But after that, I get that stuff that's been broke up and, right below that layer. So, because even dry, it still has everything you need in there. And as soon as it gets wet, they're going to go, all that bacteria and fungus going to go back to work. They just taking a hiatus right now because they ain't got much moisture to work with. Now, a lot of people want to know about, going number 1 in the bucket. I haven't had a problem with it. As guys, sometimes when we go number 2, we all go number 1 as well because it's just pretty natural. I don't know about you ladies, but I've heard people say, oh, you can't pee in them, they'll smell, they'll stink. The only time I had an odor problem is when I used that peat moss. Now, I don't pee in them all the time like a regular toilet. If you had in the house, I wouldn't do that. Ladies, I would probably have a different bucket just for number one. But I think occasionally when you go do it occasionally, I don't think it hurts anything. Certainly, I've not experienced it in 4.5 years. Like I said, sometimes when you do number two, number one comes along for the ride. Now, you do have other options when it comes to composting toilets. You could buy the $1,000 composting toilet that looks like a regular toilet, but isn't, and from what I understand can be a real pain to keep up with. I have a little stand I built that goes over these buckets with a little toilet seat. They make a chair that will fit over these 5-gallon buckets. You can buy, it's just like a toilet chair, and you can put it over that. Or you can build an outhouse or a bathroom and have a bench like Doug and Stacy and some of the other ones on YouTube. They just lift it up, pull the bucket out, put a new one in, put the media in, sawdust, whatever, and they go with that. So if you don't like the thought of having to, use a 5-gallon bucket, there are other options. But you're going to cost you. Another good source of information, actually how I got mine, there's several good videos online about composting toilets, and the one I watched that really, because I was this close from spending $1,000 on a Nature's Head composting toilet. I think that's what they're called. Nature's Head, Nature's Own, Nature something other. I think it's Nature in the name. You know what one, the one that looks like a toilet, but it's really not. And they got the little pee cup at the front and all that. Wow. 5-gallon buckets are a lot cheaper. I got these I think these are 5 or 7-gallon buckets. I got them off of Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. I don't know. I got them over 5 years ago. Got them all from one guy who had a cat. It was going to throw them out. Said, anybody, I'm going to throw these out. If you can beat the trash truck here, you can have them. I got over right quick and got me 7 or 8 of them. They've been great. If there is a sawmill near you and you can buy the sawdust, that's probably going to be your best bet if you don't have a ready-made source of sawdust. Okay, there you go. That's about all there is to composting toilets. It's really simple. A lot of channels trying to make it seem so complex. Oh, you gotta have this, you gotta have that. You can't do this, you can't do that. Folks, it's composting. It's not rocket science. Bacteria, fungus, break stuff down. They need food. Well, that food is old leaves, old hay, old straw, or poop. They break it down. That's their job. And that's all it takes right there. So, I hope this has helped you. If y'all have any questions, got any suggestions, leave them down below. I'll take a look at them. But it's been working for me for 4.5 years, and it's been working for other people a lot longer. So again, one of the easiest things you'll do on your off-grid homestead or your off-grid cabin, whatever. It's not rocket science.